Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so excited about my guest today. Now, we're going to be talking to the women business people and entrepreneurs in the world. But gentlemen, you all have those important women in your lives. So don't tune out, because you're a very important part of this process also. So please join me in welcoming April Roberts to our program. Welcome, April. How are you?
Hey, Deb. I am phenomenal, and I'm super happy to be here.
I love it. I love it. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we will jump into this because we're going to have such a fun discussion. So as a high-achieving former attorney and financial advisor with degrees from Vanderbilt and Notre Dame, April Roberts understands the societal pressures facing women that often lead to burnout. She hosts the podcast Vixen Voice, where she shares stories of GenX women that have shed the traditional definition of success to pursue their life's true passion. She is also the founder of Vixen Gathering. And as she has on her screen, for those of you who are seeing it, she is the head Vixen. So again, April, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. I tell you, Deb, I think you and I are a lot alike. I wake up every day on my knees in gratitude, and I finish on my knees in gratitude. And it is amazing how life becomes magical.
Right. Yeah. I tell people when I wake up and I'm not looking up at 6 feet of dirt, I'm doing good.
Yes. In fact, it was funny. Yesterday, I shared with you, I was recording my podcast and we had a lot of challenges, like sick guests with no power due to the hurricane, technical issues, and I'm fasting at the same time. So talk about delving into your emotional reserves, right? So I was just like, I'm trained for something. That's how I think about it. You keep on trucking, and then it turned out to be a phenomenal day, and I had lots of big wins. So you got to focus on the positive. That's how I prefer to live.
Well, and that is so often what happens, especially with women. We are doing so many things, but it's also built into our DNA to adapt and go, okay, fine. I was sharing, I have no AC in my office today. So I might get a little blow to me here going on, but we just go on. We don't whine. We don't carry on. Or if we do, maybe we whine with a glass of wine. That's even better. Right. But, I mentioned your bio, and it's absolutely fabulous, but I always like knowing from my guests how they got to where they are today. So how did you decide to kind of toss away you didn't toss it away because it is part of who you are, but you're not an attorney anymore or a financial advisor. You are the head Vixen. How did you decide that being the head Vixen is where you want to be at this point in life?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And for sure, it was a journey, not a set moment in time or decision, as happens to most of us. So I can say I was blessed. I think it's a combination of how I was born and how my parents raised me, that I'm always striving for happiness in my life. Like that's probably my top goal. So when I find myself less than happy, I get back there. They always talk about how the uber rich can lose everything and they're going to be rich again in no time because that's where their mindset is. Well, I'm kind of like that with happiness. I just think, we're put on earth to enjoy our lives. Of course, we're here for a purpose. We're made perfectly imperfect for that purpose. So the more we embrace like truly who we are and run with it, the more successful. But, I think my story is kind of typical of my generation. And I know you're the generation ahead of me.
I'm a little older.
Yeah. And so you're like, you're my parents' generation. But what's interesting is because you guys work so hard, being your children, you wanted the best for us, right? So the dream was go to a good college. I went to Vanderbilt, check. I went to law school at Notre Dame, check. We'll talk about that. And, my dad was the first person in our family to even go to college, right? Wow. So I'm only second generation. And of course, my parents wanted that next step for me. And I'm a person, honestly, I like to win, Deb. I like to be happy and I like to win. And I've accepted that about myself. I shared with you, I'm fasting. And last week I started this journey and I only lost like 2 pounds. And so I was talking to my wellness coach and I was like, she was like, why are you rebelling? And I was like, I don't know. I just don't want to do this. And then I realized it's because I didn't get the results I wanted, right? So then I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, doing it again this week. We're going to get the results, right? So I had to reframe my mindset because I really am a results oriented person. And so anyway, bottom line, I was the nerdy kid. Like I guess an anomaly because I was super social. I was out having fun. I was doing the bad stuff, but I was also every Saturday taking practice ACT and SAT exams. So I don't know how much of that was me liking to win and getting results and how much was it my parents' path of success for me, but I think it was a combo. And, so kind of went to Vanderbilt. Honestly, I wanted to be an English teacher and my parents said, well, you can come home and get an education degree. Like we're not paying this tuition.
Yeah, we're not
even
paying Vandy prices.
Yeah. But they have the 4th best education program in the country. And I'm like, okay, what's next? Okay, well, I want to be a writer. Again, you can come home. And then it was like, well, I want to teach, engineers and scientists like how to communicate better because they're brilliant. So I want to get a PhD in communications. Again, my logical success-driven parents were like, that didn't make a ton of sense to them, right? And so I kind of got driven toward law school and I had thought about being a lawyer and communication is a skill of mine. So I was like, okay, I'll go be a litigator. Right. So I go to Notre Dame and I get there and Notre Dame was top 10 in litigation. So I was super excited to go there. They had a year abroad in London. So again, I like to have fun and I like to win, right? Like this is just how I am. And I always second guess myself for being that way, right? I was like, why do I want to have fun? And why am I lazy sometimes?
We're supposed to work hard and not have fun.
Exactly. And even I remember my boyfriend in college saying, you are the smartest woman I've ever met. And you're also the laziest. Like, how are you saying this to me? Right?
Yeah. And how are you able to continue with your classes?
Right. Because, I just feel like if I didn't want to do something, I didn't do it. And, later I share this journey because as we learn ourselves, the more powerful we can become, especially we women, because like you said, we are adaptable and that can be our superpower or it can be our kryptonite, right? We want to adapt for our purpose, not adapt to please people. Right. And, later in life, I took the print assessment, which told me I was an 8-7. An 8 means you're super self-driven and a 7 means you want to have fun and enjoy life. So
which made sense.
Okay, I'm not crazy. Yeah. Like this is who I am. So anyway, I go to Notre Dame and literally I was like, I'm not going to be a lawyer. And after 1 year of them cramming all that stuff in my head, I was like, I'm going to use this. Because my parents were like, just get a law degree. It's practical.
You can do something different later.
Right? How many times were we told this kind of stuff? And then I went to practice law that summer and I went home to Mississippi. So it was a smaller firm and they actually let me do legal work. And I was like, wow, this is fun. My brain likes this, So anyway, I went on and somehow, even though I enjoyed law school, I got a job with the largest law firm in Atlanta, where you live now, King and Spalding. And I was on their business litigation team, which was like the premier team everyone wanted to be on. And I'd like, the thing is, I enjoyed it. For 2 years, I enjoyed my life until I realized the work I was doing. And when I would look at the partners and what their life was, which is what I should aspire to live, I was like, I don't want that life. Yeah. And so for some reason, I feel very blessed that by the age of 25, I kind of understood this. And so I like the intellectual part of my job. I didn't find it soul fulfilling. And I already was feeling that soul call at that age. But of course, I didn't know what else to do. So I always ask if you want the 2-minute or 10-minute version. So pop in at any time.
Keep going. We got lots of time.
So I just remember, what happened was I fell in love, and I fell in love with an Italian, and I met him in a club in Chicago of all places. So our story was we were going to tell our kids that we met in church, but that was not what happened.
Especially the Italian Catholic.
Right. And so I met him. He went home to Italy and literally emailed me every day. He asked for my email. And we emailed every day, and we fell in love by writing. And, this doesn't exist in today's world.
No,
we were basically writing love letters. Yeah, exactly. So by the time we saw each other again, we were in love. And then we're like, oh, what do we do? You live in Milan. I live in Atlanta. He came to visit me. And then he went home and he was like, forget it. I'm moving to Atlanta.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay. And it's so funny. I've never shared this story, but I love it because times are so different. I remember calling my mom saying, what do I do? Like, he wants to move in with me. And I was like, Dad'll kill me, because I was always told, like, you don't live with someone before you get married. Like, I was a good Southern girl. And my mom's like, what are you going to have him do? Move in the apartment down the street, April? And I was like, okay, fine. So anyway, that happened. So, what happened was someone I loved came into my life. So really all these issues you see get magnified. And I think that's why most of us make life decisions, especially women. You get married, you have children, your parents get sick, all these things happen. And like you said, we're adaptable, we adjust. So we were literally going through the immigration process. We'd gotten married. And at that time it was very difficult. And it was, it was this period where he couldn't go home until he was approved for his green card.
Right. Yeah. Because it would mess up the timing and
yeah, like you're not allowed to leave the country. And I don't know if that's still the way it is, but like they won't let you back in if you leave while things are pending. And so, we were stuck in that mode, which was fine. But then his grandfather got sick.
Oh, no.
It was the person who he was closest to in his life. And I just looked at my husband, who looked devastated. We're in the immigration attorney's office being told,
you can't go be with him.
Sorry, you can't go. And I looked at him, I said, well, I guess we're moving to Italy. Yeah. And honestly, that's why we moved to Italy. So he went a month ahead of me to get us our own apartment. And, he had to leave because he couldn't stay here if we weren't continuing with the green card process. And I spent a month because I was the responsible oldest child, tying up all my cases, like taking care of things, selling our stuff, like getting ready to move. And it's interesting because that time was miserable, because can you imagine being a newlywed and your husband is now across the world? And I know plenty of people go through this, right? But it's tough.
Right. And technology was a little bit different.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Our cell phone bills were astronomical. Like that was painful. Yes. So that's how I ended up in Italy, which was interesting because, again, total A-type driven, like to win. No one wants to give me a job. My American law degree is not good in Europe.
Right. They're
Most
like,
people
you
don't
do
realize
what?
this.
No.
Yeah. So I apply for like legal secretary, legal assistant, like all these other jobs. And then they're like, you're overqualified. We can't hire you for that. And I'm like, what the hell? I literally have degrees from two of the best universities in the United States, and I cannot get hired to save my life. Right. And so anyway, we'll fast forward, but I ended up teaching English. And
that was what you wanted to do.
Yeah. And so I was teaching English to lawyers, executives, adults. I taught at Berlusconi's publishing house, which was interesting. And it gave me a key skill because, you've had this podcast forever. And Deb, that active listening is a skill, right? And you have to hone it. So I was teaching English 8 hours a day to non-English speakers. I got darn good at active listening. And so fast forward, basically, again, life changed. Unfortunately, my husband, who I love very much and who was a wonderful person, had addiction issues that he couldn't kick. Yeah. And so after a couple of times of cleaning up,
Mm-hmm.
I found myself emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
physically, and mentally depleted.
Well,
I
and your
remember
support system over there would have been maybe
yes.
non-existent.
Well, I had angels for friends, thank
Mm-hmm.
goodness. But yeah, I wasn't that close to my in-laws.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have family. You're
Mm-hmm.
so right. And this is important because I look back because I coached the 5 pillars of Vixen. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, if 27-year-old April had these 5 pillars,
Mm-hmm.
like I would have survived this time better.
Right.
Right. I don't think, and I just don't want other women to end up broken
Mm-hmm.
like that because sometimes it comes out of the blue,
Mm-hmm.
right? You've been winning,
Mm-hmm.
and something happens. I just did an interview. I was on another podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and I had her on mine, and she was sharing about postpartum and how
Mm-hmm.
that changed her
Right.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's so important that we women talk about these things
Right.
because
Because
like
they
you
are
said,
normal and they are natural and there's nothing wrong with you.
yes. And it totally can change your
Mm-hmm.
life. And it's important that you reach out and ask for
Mm-hmm.
help.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what's interesting. When I was in this position, I learned who was truly on my side and who was
Mm-hmm.
not.
Right.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe in forgiveness. Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
But then, that's when my journey of boundary setting started
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, okay, I'm at the lowest point of my life
Mm-hmm.
and you're supposed to be one of my best friends and
Right.
you can't be here
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much you're
Mm-hmm.
taking the April energy, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not giving anything.
Right.
So
Oh, yeah.
this
I
isn't
discovered
right.
that when I got cancer. It was like
Yeah.
weird, right? The people you think would be your biggest support system aren't. And sometimes the people that you didn't even know knew you existed are the ones that step up.
Totally. And not only do they disappear, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they get triggered. I
Right.
remember my best friend calling
Mm-hmm.
me and yelling at me for
Ah!
something when I'm
Mm-hmm.
going through this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. But, I was blessed because I share with you, I do spiritual healing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, I very much feel we're here on purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
I talk to God now about
Mm-hmm.
my purpose all the
Right.
time, which is the
Mm-hmm.
Vixen Gathering and the work I do.
Mm-hmm.
And but that moment in my life where all these people disappeared, thank
Mm-hmm.
goodness I have amazing parents. I have an amazing family.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to go back home, but here I went to Vanderbilt, I went to Notre Dame. I
Right.
worked
You
at
didn't
the
want to
most
go
prestigious
back to
firm in
mommy's.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was an Italian
Mm-hmm.
housewife for 3 years.
Mhm.
And then I find myself living in my parents' home at like
Mhm.
the age of 32. Like I was like, how'd this happen?
Mhm.
Okay, well, I'm going to take a moment.
Mhm.
So what's interesting is I actually sold Arbonne during that
Mm-hmm.
time, and MLMs get a really bad name,
But
but
Arbonne's
I
a very well run organization.
yeah, and absolutely. And what I loved was it connected me with other women.
Mhm.
Remember, I'd been a
Right.
lawyer. I was
Mhm.
like, there was one female partner out of
Mhm.
40 on my team.
Mhm.
I mean, most of my best friends since law school had been men,
Mhm.
and I did have a couple of female
Mhm.
friends, but it really reconnected me with my
Mhm.
feminine side
Mhm.
and with having the women in my life. And I reconnected with a lot of female
Mhm.
family members, like cousins, aunts, people I hadn't.
Mhm.
And it was really fun and it
Mhm.
kind of saved me.
Mhm.
And so, kind of if you think of that spirit, that's what I bring
Mhm.
into the Vixen
Mhm.
Gathering and the
Mhm.
work we do, working with female entrepreneurs. So I share all of this because I mean, our journey really does
Mhm.
lead us to where we
Right.
are because becoming an active listener, even though, I was making 14 euros an hour, I
Mhm.
think, teaching
Mhm.
English, which was
Yikes. Mhm.
ridiculous, right? Like, then I became an amazing financial
Mhm.
advisor because of that. My clients
Mhm.
were like, gosh, you remember everything. You hear
Mhm.
everything. Like, my clients really trusted me because of
Mhm.
my listening
Mhm.
skills. And then now, as a coach, a
Mhm.
consultant, and a podcast host,
Mhm.
what's my key
Mhm.
skill? Listening, right?
Right.
So that came up. And if I hadn't had that experience with Arbonne, I wouldn't have understood
Mhm.
how fun it
Mhm.
was when you get a group of women
Mhm.
in a room.
Right.
So, yeah, so that's the early journey.
Mhm.
Basically, I became a financial advisor in
Mhm.
between for 16 years,
Mhm.
built my business to multiple 7 figures,
Mhm.
sold it last year so I could
Mhm.
go full time in this.
Mhm.
And, that was another journey as well, starting in 2017, I started having visions. And, you shared that, Deb, you shared you've had a life, and have you here, I've had a life too, right? Different ways. But, by that age, I understood what I call the 2x4 rule, which is God or your higher self or the universe, whatever you believe in. It kind of whispers to us when we're off track, and then it gets a little louder. And if we don't listen and take action, we get that nice 2x4 in the forehead.
Walk.
And I had already had that in my marriage and, other experiences. And I'm like, okay, so 2017, this vision showed up. 2019, it came back. The third time it came to me was April of 2020. Now, remember,
we're just in a little shutdown mode then.
Yes. I'm running a team. I'm running a financial team. We're in an economic crisis. We're suddenly a remote team. We've never been before. And my parents are in my business with me too. Oh, and by the way, my dad got paralyzed that summer and had to have surgery. Thank goodness he's not anymore. So I just remember I'm reading this book and the vision came to me for the third time. And I just remember looking up and going, really, right now? Like, seriously?
It's not really a good time.
So, that year I knew the 2x4 was coming. And so I had to keep my team motivated. I had to keep my clients literally from jumping off cliffs, letting them know they were okay. I had to manage their assets well, which thank goodness we did. We actually doubled our business in an 8-month period because we doubled down on taking care of our clients. I don't know if you remember, but before that, a lot of things were becoming commoditized and it's happening again, right? And suddenly people appreciated being seen as human beings again. So I just told my team, I was like, hey, this is what we're good at. Let's double down and show up for our clients. And we did it. And it's amazing how your business booms when you treat people like human beings. So all this going on. So this is the beginning. I started seeing a spiritual healer and he started working with me on my boundary setting because obviously I had a lot of balls in the air, right? And I had to protect myself. So, I love and look, I was just guilty of this Monday with my wellness coach. I was like, I just don't have freaking time for this, right? We all say it, but it's a choice. You and I talked about it. And into the 2020 with all this going on, I still found an hour and a half a day for meditation and prayer. So 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes midday, 30 minutes into day. And Deb, honestly, it saved my sanity and allowed me to do all of these things. So again, we all fall in this trap of I don't have time. So I became kind of a boundaries expert and a time management. I call it time, energy, and confidence management because I think these are our key assets. And normally we're setting boundaries to protect these things, right? And other important things. So I just think boundary setting is so important in being an entrepreneur and living a good life. And and so that's how the Vixen Gathering was born in the midst of that chaos. And I got to go full time March of last year. So I'm super excited. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, why Vixen? Why did you name it Vixen Gathering?
Great question. So actually I had someone helping me with branding and it was a man who came up with that name, believe it or not, Jimmy. So I give Jimmy credit. Yeah. And the reason was the vixen, the female fox, is the only species where the female is more attractive than the male. So they attract in the male, which is the opposite of most species. And if you look at the characteristics of a vixen, it's very compelling for
a little sassy,
a savvy
little
businesswoman. Yes. And the second reason I loved it was I think we tend to take ourselves too seriously. So we need to have a little fun.
Right. I love it. I love it. And so much to discuss now and pick apart. It's so interesting because I think we as women put ourselves second in so many cases because we're nurturing, we're doing whatever. And you talk about boundaries and I discovered when I set up my business many years ago, many years ago, that I had to absolutely have boundaries, because a big part of it was people went, well, you work from home, therefore you work 24/7. And I would say, no. And at that point I told them, I said, now I have office hours, just like anybody else has office hours,
Right.
which they ignored. So then I told them in a way that affected their pocketbook. And I said, I am more than happy to work evenings, weekends, and holidays, but it will cost you double. Now that got their attention, right? But I also learned that I had to respect those boundaries myself. Now,
Yes.
do I read emails nights, evenings, weekends? Yes. I was just on vacation. I worked the entire time. But it is one of those things where we have to realize, okay, can it wait? And most times it can. Now that doesn't mean we stop thinking about it. We're still going, okay, well, I'm going to respond. I'm going to do this, this, and this. But it is about setting those boundaries. And, I always laugh when people say we need a work-life personal balance. Well, no, that never happens because balance is 50-50,
doesn't exist.
Right?
Yeah.
Nothing's ever going to be 50-50. You might hit that 50-50 on your way to, but yeah, it's not, we are not going to have that. And so it is about how do you set things up with both your business and your personal life in a way that works for you. Because it changes. There are times where, you're going to do more work. There are times where you're going to have more fun. But it's all about, those are your decisions. Or as you said earlier, those are your choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And the key word you said, it's up to you, right? Like you do a work-life balance that works for you.
Right.
And, that goes back to my driving purpose. I really think that God made us all perfectly imperfect for a reason. Like we're here to fulfill a purpose. That's why I explained my 8-7 story. And like when I took the Colby assessment, it was another mind blown because I'm like a 3-3-9-4, which the 2 3s are fact finding and due diligence. So it's like, what the heck was I doing being a litigator? Like I would have burnt out. And like I'm a 9, I'm a visionary. I like to come up with ideas and I need other people to execute, right? Like it's so funny. And when you understand these things, you become more successful,
right?
Because I know I hate follow-up. Like if I had to write a ton of follow-up emails, like if you're a client and I write you a long follow-up email, I really love you, or this really needs to be done.
There's a problem.
This is not part of my wheelhouse. So we've limited how many consulting clients I bring on. And that's a way I set boundaries, distinguishing consulting and coaching, right? And we can talk about that. And so I limit to X number of consulting clients because they require more follow-up.
Right. They need more hand holding.
Yes. And they're paying more. And I ain't good at follow-up. So now I have like an amazing executive assistant who I stole from a music company here in town. She's coming on board. And when we get our system set up for follow-up, guess what? I can take more consulting clients, right? But it's too important to me to deliver value that I'm not going to overpromise and under deliver. So I've had to actually limit that leg of revenue in my business, and actually an activity I really enjoy because I really love getting to know my clients and getting to know their business and all of their team and being on site and setting goals. So, because I know myself, I had to get the team and the system set up so that we can go win in that area.
Right. And one of the things that you talked about that I love is that you got someone to help. So many times we think I got to do it all. Whether it's I'm the business owner, so I'm in charge, or we think, it's I can't ask anybody else for help because then it's going to show that I don't know what's going on. I do a lot of volunteer work, and one of my primary people that I was talking to, it was so funny. I was whining, back to the whining part, right? I'm doing too much. And, we're just doing this back and forth on messaging. And her response was, I have one word for you: delegate. And it's really hard for me because I'm a type A. Now, you're an oldest, I'm an only. And so, right, we're used to just having to do it. And, and plus, if I have somebody else do it, they might not do it right. Or, they're going to do it their way. Well, when I figured out, they might actually do it better, heaven forbid, right? But when I learned to delegate and get people used to it, right? That was the other thing, because they were used to saying, hey, Deb, will you do this? Knowing that I would. And so, that's that boundary again, right? Where I would say, well, I can, but, and I was talking to one of my guests on my podcast, and she said, you have fabulous people working with you, working for you, volunteering for you, all of those things. Honor them by allowing them to do what they're good at. Yes. And that really struck me, obviously. Right. Because it is one of those things, my producer is really, really good at, contacting the guests beforehand, coordinating the schedule, doing all of that. Could I do it? Yes, I used to before I had the lovely and talented Kim, but, she's really good at that. And so it's like, I honor her by allowing her to do that. Now, every once in a while, something happens, but she's, she is so wonderful about keeping me posted. She's got something going on in her life where I may not, she's got kind of a family thing going on where I might have to step in and do some of her stuff for a while. Yeah. Family always comes first, and it should. So I am more, but I'm thinking, but she's so good at that. I don't want to have to do that. Right. But it is about finding our team of supporters who are going to allow us to grow. Yeah.
Well, and also setting boundaries in communication and time, right? So, there's tons of ways to set boundaries, but, you have to be very clear of, hey, I'm available at these times. I'm not available at these times. I'm available via these means of communication. I am not available via these means of communication, because right now we have people burning out because you might get a DM on LinkedIn, a DM on Facebook, a DM on Instagram. Then you have your community chat,
and my brain shorts out.
Text messages, and then you have email. And like yesterday, I was like, I don't even remember where this person scheduled a meeting from because she scheduled it direct with me. And I'm like, this is why I have an assistant. I can't even, like, it took time and energy to realize where I could communicate with this person. Right. And so, I have a lot of clients who've become friends and friends who've become clients. And I literally had to tell my mastermind group, I was like, hey guys, I know we're all friends. I love that. That's a dream of mine. I never thought I would get to live this life. However, when you're talking to me about friend things, you can text me.
Yes.
When you're talking to me about business stuff or you need me to coach you, I need you to DM me in our community. I need it to be in
one place.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I don't think that people really think about laying those boundaries about modes of communication.
And we don't want to make people unhappy.
Yeah. Well, you make no one happy if you try to please everyone. So
yeah, because if I'm going, I don't remember you saying that, then they're going to be unhappy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just like, hey, so that we can serve you better, could you please do it this way? Like, it's always for their benefit, right? And not, hey, I can't talk to you on text. Like, it's all in how you present it and the reason why. And that's a huge part. We were going to chat about boundaries today, but that's a huge part. I don't think that people really prepare to set boundaries and they don't prepare to have the conversation setting boundaries, right? And let's be honest, like when it's something we don't want to do or we don't feel great about, we all default to the easy route.
Right. So we don't if you do it.
Right. So if you're not prepared, then you are going to fall prey to, oh, it's okay if you text me. Right. But if you think through, hey, how do I communicate with my clients? How do I communicate with my friends? And then you can clearly articulate that because, I had this aha months ago. I'm sure you're like me, like I kind of joke with my clients. I'm like, if you're working with me, like you're going to have a better life and you're going to make more money. Like if I have to drag you across the finish line, like I told you, I'm results oriented, right? Yeah. Like we're going to win. And, it's kind of like, okay, but I realized I was doing all this extra stuff for them. And then the aha was when I realized the definition of consulting versus coaching. And I'm like, I'm doing consulting work for them and they're paying me coaching pricing. Now, my consulting hourly rate is twice my coaching hourly rate, right? And so I was like, oh, well, this is simple. We're just doing a new division of the company.
Right. If that's what they want, then we will offer it to them.
Yeah. And make it easy for me to have that conversation. Right. So I was talking to a coaching client the other day and she was like, hey, maybe you could research this. I said, I totally would be happy to. That's consulting. Like go check out our consulting packages and buy a couple of hours and I'm happy to do it. And then she was like, oh, okay. Or I could research it. I'm like, perfect. That's a great solution.
It's your choice.
Yes. But, I set that up so that I quit over serving to protect myself.
Right.
So a lot of times we have to set boundaries to protect ourselves, our time, our confidence, our energy. Sometimes we set them to protect our goals, right? If we're constantly doing what other people want, we're not moving forward on our goals and serving our purpose. And sometimes we set them to protect people we care about. Like there are boundaries to protect my team. There are boundaries to protect my family. Like
I don't do evening meetings unless I absolutely have to.
Exactly. And, like you said, life changes. I had a realtor client and she has 2 young kids. And so we just rearranged her schedule where, from 5:30 to 7:30, which is dinner and bath time, like she's not available. And then when she puts the kids to bed, she goes and pulls out the emails because, unfortunately she is a realtor. She does have to get back to her clients. And then she just communicated to her clients, hey, if you reach out to me in these periods, I'm going to get back to you at 8:30.
I'm not ignoring you.
Yes.
Right.
And so once you set these boundaries, people really, if you explain to people and you show them how it's valuable for them, hey, look, I could answer you from 5:30 to 7:30. My main focus is my kids. So you're not going to get the best answer from me. But if I answer you at 8:30, you're going to get 100% of me.
Right.
What's the client going to take? They want 100% of you, right?
Yeah. Well, and the important thing is once you communicated it, keep it. If you told them I'm not going to respond between 5:30 and 7:30, then don't respond. Obviously there are emergencies, and so that is different. But if you have said, I'm not going to respond, the first time they send something, it is not, I need to respond now. No, and do whatever you need to do to remember to do it. I mean, if you're on email, you can set it to send later, all those things, or maybe you put your phone down and you don't check your email during those times, right?
Yeah,
I know.
No, I haven't had email on my phone since 2012 or 2014.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Thank you to Darren Hardy, who he teaches insanely, insane productivity. And he was like, at the early age, he was like, you're going to get distracted by all these devices. So I've had these things in place, but I agree with you. I'm just thinking you're not even looking at email from 5:30 to 7:30. So there's no choice. And then if there is an emergency, they can reach you in another way.
Right. And you can glance at it, you can do whatever, but just, and I tell people, if it's an emergency, that's what you need to preface it with.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not going to pay attention. I have clients who send me things after 9:00 at night. That's perfectly fine. I have told them I'm not going to do anything with it until the next day. Yeah. But if it is an emergency, then you need to tell me, oh my gosh, this is an emergency. Because then I will go, oh, okay, I need to do this. Now I might look at it and go, no, it's really not. Right. Yeah. Your emergency and my emergency might be a little bit different. But, it's about that. And so it's setting those boundaries ourselves. And it's funny because before the program, we were talking about, what all are we going to talk about? One of the hardest things for women is to love ourselves. And that is a big part of this, saying no and knowing it's a full sentence. It is not no, but, right. Or not even saying no, but it's about knowing that when we love and take care of ourselves, we're more able to take care of everybody else.
Oh, yeah. You're giving from a full cup. And if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, I mean, this is what I get hired to speak about all the time and brought on podcast is your time, energy, and confidence are the key assets of your business and they must be protected. And it extends beyond your business. I like to use the analogy that women are usually the foundation. One, if you own a business, you're the foundation of your business. Women are usually the foundation of their family, the foundation foundation of their home, often the foundation of communities. And so if the foundation is cracked, how well is that going to go for everyone? So it's almost like you have a duty to love and take care of yourself. And I'm a very spiritual person. So I believe we have that duty because we're children of God and we've been gifted this body to live in. And it's my job to take care of it to the best of my ability. But also because we do love and we do give and we want to take care of everyone around us. Like it's impossible to take care of them if your foundation is cracked.
Right. It's so interesting because I've learned through, all of the various trials and tribulations that I have had in dealing with health issues that when I hit that wall, it's like, nope, we're done. Now can I push past it? Yes. But then I get even sicker. Right. Yep. And so people know when I say, nope, not going to happen today. It's not that I don't love them or that I don't, all those various things. I need to take that time off in order to then be better later. But it is about recognizing that because we want to keep going. We were just at this big family thing, so much fun, big family wedding, all sorts of things. I still took time to nap in the afternoons and people went, yeah, but no, it's my time to, yeah, but no, I need to go to the hotel. I need to lay down and relax for a while, because if I don't do that, I'm not going to be any good to anybody. And it is hard, right? Because, it was like, oh my gosh, all the family's here. I want to see all the family, but no, and the same thing comes with your business. I'm in charge. I have to go to every meeting. I have to read every email. I have to. No, you don't.
Yeah. Well, and if you feel you have to do everything, you don't have a solid business, right? Because you have a single point of failure in your business and it's you. So that's why we build teams. That's why we build systems. That's why now we use automations because things have to continue without us. And I like how you say, so first of all, I hate how you say you push past your limit, but that's a whole nother talk. You and I can chat about that offline. But I get it. Like we all do that at some point. But I think when you start honoring the smaller limits, it helps. So, we do retreats and quarterly retreats. And the first night we have a welcome reception. Everybody's excited to see each other in person. Everybody wants to talk. And literally every time I'm like, okay, ladies, I hit my wall.
We're done. We're done.
And because I literally feel when I'm just like, okay, I'm done. And it's not like I'm done. I'm exhausted. I'm depleted. It's just like, I'm not wanting to be as friendly and articulate as I need.
Yeah. I'm feeling that little edge.
And like they kind of laugh now, like the women that have been with me for the last year and a half, they're like, it's time. And I'm like, yeah, it's time. See you tomorrow. Bye. And like, it's kind of like a little joke. And I think, and they all have their things too. Like one of them I know loves taking baths because she's away from the family and the dogs and stuff. So like if we have a room with a bath, I make sure she gets the room with the bath.
So she can go and relax.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of women coming together. If we look in history, right? Like how many, like sewing circles, like all the women came together and did beautiful things and took care of each other and supported each other. And I think we can recreate that in ways in modern society because now we have more responsibility than ever, right? And so that's why it's so important to find a community that you love to hang with, be it a family, be it a mastermind, be it a collective, maybe it's like colleagues at work, maybe it's your best friends, but like you need that space where and honor each other. And this group should be your biggest cheer. Well, one, I believe you should be your own biggest cheerleader. That kind of goes
back
along
to
with what
self-love.
we're talking about. Yep. But then this group should be your biggest cheerleaders. They should be your accountability partners, and they should celebrate your wins with you because I know you work with a lot of high achievers too. High achievers do not stop and smell the roses.
No.
Like one great way to build your confidence is to celebrate your wins, right? Like I annoy the crap out of new people because they'll be like, I'm like, oh, so nice to meet you. What's your biggest win this week? Like that's my cocktail conversation because like I want to know something interesting about you and I want to know what's great in your life. But yeah, so I just think it's so important. And you kind of talked about that earlier, like surrounding yourself with the right people. I think that was
Right.
before we went online, like knowing that you're in charge, but then also surrounding
Right.
yourself with the people that honor this.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to be away from the office next week. And so I sent an email to my team and I said, just so you know, or just a reminder, right? I'm going to be out. Everything should be perfectly fine, but you needed to know. And of course, and it's all women, not by design, just because, that's how it happened. But of course, they all immediately, what can we do? And I said, hopefully nothing, but I have full faith that if you need to step in, it will be fine. And because I recruited people who I know can immediately step in. And I think that's one of the hardest things is thinking, okay, can somebody step in? Now, do we like to think that we're irreplaceable? Well, of course. But, it is also, I know somebody else can do this. They're going to do it different. They might do it better. They might do it, not as well. But does it really matter? A lot of times, no. But it's giving them that opportunity to just step into their own light. And be able to say, okay, I can do this, and it's going to be perfectly fine. And then for me to not stress over it, because I know this wonderful group is perfectly fine. Hopefully it's not needed, but you never know.
Well, and then forget about it and trust. It goes back to earlier. You said you might still be thinking about it, but I would argue, why are you still thinking about it? Like that's wasted energy
because they'll just do it. Well, and it's important to not be going, everything okay? Everything okay? Everything okay? Anything I need to be doing? Everything okay? No, just say, okay. And whether it's that you're out for what vacation, whatever. I remember I interviewed a gentleman, many years ago when we were on this podcast, and he said his biggest accomplishment was when he was able to go on vacation. Now he has thousands of employees. When he was able to go on vacation and not worry in the slightest.
Yeah.
And he said that was really hard, but he also knew that everybody he had working for him were more than capable of doing it. And he told him, he said, obviously, if it's an emergency, this person can contact me. Only this person. You got to go through that person. So it wasn't, right? With all, and he said, everything else is fine. And he knew that person was really going to be the gatekeeper. She was going to say, nope. And it's, it's about having faith in those people. And if we don't, then we need different people. That was one of the things somebody told me during COVID was, I'm not with my people. I'm so worried that they're not getting the work done. And I said, well, if they were in your office and you were there hovering, were they getting the work done? And if the answer was yes, then I said, they'll still get the work done. If the answer was no, then I said, you got a different problem. And that was the thing was we know that they're there, we honor them and we trust them. And if we don't, what do we need to do to fix that?
Yeah, no, I agree. And so many business owners hesitate to take time off and just high achievers in general. And it's so crazy because I met Michael Hyatt. He was a speaker at a very small conference I was at. So we were in Napa. So we kind of spent the weekend together and I was chatting with him as I was starting the Vixen Gathering and I still had my financial planning company. And I was like, I'm not sure what to do. And he said, April, take a sabbatical. The best way to test your business and if it can exist without you is to take time off. And, it was like summer of 21. And by that point, we'd gotten through 2020. I'd been doing all this stuff. Like I didn't have burnout in 2020, but it hit April of 2021. Like we had that big freeze in Texas. I was frozen in my house for a week. Like all this crazy stuff happened. So finally I was like, okay, I'm feeling it. Like I need a break. Like we're over the hump. And so I took off the month of July. And here's what's interesting. My top advisor at the time who wanted to buy into the company, I was like, okay, here's what
here's your chance.
When I came back, he quit because he realized he couldn't fill those shoes, right? Or that it wasn't what he was meant to do. And that's fine. But then I was like, well, crap, there goes my exit plan.
Oops.
And then I was like, I guess I'm sticking in this business. But then I got so addicted to the sabbatical and having more control of my time that with my drive to do what I'm doing now, really, it's very difficult to decide to exit and sell a company.
Right.
You have hundreds of clients dependent on you. You have your team. My parents were in the business with me. And, I was making this decision for all of us and, trying to find a win-win situation is a very lonely endeavor. And so you have to really have compelling reasons to do this.
Right.
You kind of asked at the beginning, what led to you changing everything? And I mean, the seeds were planted and the sabbatical really sowed it because during the sabbatical, I was working on my new business and I wasn't working on the old. And I was like,
you weren't taking a sabbatical.
I like this so much. Well, I was doing the marketing and stuff, the fun stuff. So, it was a sabbatical from that business. And so, I think we have to honor ourselves. Like a lot of times the pause gives us the answer, right? It was the same thing when I went through my divorce. My life suddenly paused and I would go for long walks every day. And I remember just looking up saying, okay, I'm over this, send it to me. And within 2 weeks, I had a job, a house, a boyfriend, like it was crazy. But I mean, it was the first time in my life I could slow down and think about what I really wanted my life to be and what my purpose was. And so, and if you don't set boundaries, you don't have the pause. You don't have those quiet moments.
Right. And those are just absolutely critical because, and we have to do it or the 2x4 happens, right?
Yes.
You get sick,
painful.
you lose your job. Yeah. Whatever it is. And so, we don't want people to get hit by the 2x4. When I was at my doctor and they said, oh, you have cancer. I literally told them, I'm sorry, that's not in my schedule. And she, of course, looked at me and went, well, it is now. But we don't want hit by those 2x4s because those 2x4s hurt. And so it is about, how do we do this on our own? And like you said, the boundaries. I mean, and when I started my business, I had to do those on the personal side too, because people said, well, you're home, so you can go out to lunch, you can do the laundry, you can do, I'm like, no, here's, and it's a balancing act. I mean, that is more what it is, but it is about going, okay, well, I worked 9 hours yesterday, so I'm going to go to a movie tomorrow, or all of those things, and which is of course why people think, oh, I'm going to be my own business, because they think we're going to have more flexibility. No.
It's like, well, I do believe in designing your business around your life, if you're in control. But I mean, when you're starting a business, you're in the stormies. Any new endeavor, you're in the stormies, and it's a rough ride. I mean, this is my third business in the last year. I was doing that. I was training to be a spiritual healer, and I was like, everybody's like, are you not dating? And I was like, I don't have the emotional capacity left for that. Like, I'm good for now. As soon as things clear, I'm happy to start dating again. Like,
and that 2x4 may whack you and you'll go, ooh.
It's seasons of your life. That's how I like to think. There really is no balance, right? But in this season, I'm focused on XYZ. And when that's done, next season, I'll focus on ABC. And I'm okay with that.
Right. And back to that word flexible, right? We need to look at it and go, okay, well, I might think I'm going to do ABC, next quarter. Well, maybe not. I think one of my favorite sayings is, we think and God laughs, or we plan and God laughs. That's it, right? We plan and God laughs. Okay, so we are flexible. We go with the flow. We do whatever it is that we need to do, but we have to think about why, right? And back to that original thing, what is the choice? Because, sometimes that choice is really, really hard. The choice to get divorced, the choice to sell your business, all of these various things. But it is still a choice we make. And by not making a choice, that was our choice also. And so I think that's one of the tricky things to remember.
Well, and I find people have such a hard time
Mhm.
wrapping their head
Mhm.
around this concept because I
Mhm.
shared with you, I've had this conversation a
Mhm.
lot lately. It's come up. But what they don't realize is when you understand
Mhm.
everything is a choice, it is
Mhm.
the ultimate freedom. As
Right.
I shared with you,
Mhm.
every day for me is
Mhm.
magical, even the challenging
Mhm.
days, because it's like, okay, but I chose this. Like,
Mhm.
this is
Mhm.
my choice,
Right.
and I'm a paid professional, and
Mhm.
this is what I'm supposed
Mhm.
to be
Mhm.
doing. And when you understand that everything
Mhm.
is your
Mhm.
choice, that God gave us
Mhm.
free will,
Mhm.
then it's so incredibly
Mhm.
freeing. And
Right.
I don't know, people hang on to that security
Mhm.
blanket of
Oh yeah,
fear,
change is
right?
scary.
Yes.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Mhm. Right. Well, oh my gosh, April, we could go on forever. This is why I always make sure we set a timer. So I want to know more about the Vixen Gathering. It's not just a bunch of ladies sitting around gabbing. Tell us more about it because I know that there are people who are saying we need to know more.
I love it. Thank you. Yes. So right now in the Vixen Gathering, we basically have two offerings. One is the
Mhm.
one-on-one consulting, and I
Okay.
really limit to 5
Mhm.
clients because I
Mhm.
go deep with them.
Mhm.
So I recently had a client that I suggested she go a different
Mhm.
direction because she needed some
Mhm.
done for you work. So I do have an opening there.
Mhm.
And then we also have the Vixen Founders Collective,
Ooh.
which my goal is for
Mhm.
it to be the ultimate
Mhm.
business coaching and
Mhm.
consulting, personal growth,
Mhm.
and networking community for GenX female
Mhm.
founders. And of course, it's so funny. My hair and makeup artist joined and she goes, but I'm like 30 something. Can I join? I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I just
Mhm.
say Gen X because we don't get any attention, right?
Mhm.
But like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
we have a
it's baby
baby
boomers,
boomer
it's
with us.
millennials. Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. We
Mhm.
kind of all come
Mhm.
together. So but that's really the purpose. And so
Mhm.
most of it's virtual. We meet an hour and a half every
Mhm.
week for coaching and consulting. We have
Mhm.
special experts I bring in, and then we have quarterly retreats that you
Mhm.
can choose to join us at as well.
Mhm.
And so that is super exciting and
Mhm.
fun. And what I did was roll in my mastermind curriculum
Mhm.
and my small group coaching.
Okay.
And so the curriculum is actually high performance coaching. I'm
Mhm.
certified, and
Mhm.
I've seen so many clients double
Mhm.
and triple their
Mhm.
revenues so quickly and
Mhm.
live a better life. And
Mhm.
so I blend that with my intuitive
Mhm.
knowledge. And so the real goal is to make more money and have more
Mhm.
joy, peace, and love in
Mhm.
your life. And that's what we're striving for.
Mhm.
So it's amazing. I love it. And the women in it are inviting their friends to
Mhm.
join us because they love it so much.
Mhm.
And so we're kind of self-selecting. And
Very
yeah,
cool.
so that's
Mhm.
the great thing. And you pay and you're in it for a year,
Mhm.
and then you can decide if you want to join
Mhm.
us again next year. We keep it really simple.
I love it. So how do they find you?
Awesome. Well, I'm going to share the link with you for the Founders
Mhm.
Collective. So I'd love to chat with
Mhm.
anyone interested. A great place to find me is at Vixen Gathering on YouTube. That's
Mhm.
where my podcast sits.
Mhm.
And I actually do solo coaching, so you can get
Mhm.
some free coaching. I also have a Facebook group,
Mhm.
Abundant Business Women. I'd love to
Mhm.
have you join. And of course, you can find us at Vixen
Mhm.
Gathering on any social
Mhm.
media platform.
I love it so much. And again, ladies, we need to do this for ourselves because when we make ourselves better, then we are able to help those around us. When we've run ourselves, that candle at both ends, no, it just burns out, or falls apart, all those various things. We have to take care of ourselves. Let's be honest. It's not always that somebody else is going to take care of us. We need to take care of ourselves. So I love this concept. I really love this. And as April said, vixengathering.com, podcast, blog links, all sorts of stuff there. So please make sure that you go there.
Awesome. Yeah. And I just want to add one thing. So I love it because, we have testimonials and things, and I love to say the ones where they've doubled and tripled their
Mm-hmm.
revenue. But my favorite are when they say, you changed my family and
Right.
my life,
Right.
right? It's really, like you said, so
Mm-hmm.
that you can show up as a
Mm-hmm.
better human
Right.
being, more in love with
Mm-hmm.
yourself and more in
Mm-hmm.
love with everyone
Right.
around you.
Right. Yeah. Because sometimes doubling and tripling your income is not what is best for you. And so yeah, it's so important to know what it is that you want out of life. Well, oh my gosh, April, this has been so much fun. And like we said, we still have more things to chat about. So we'll have to do that. Until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
I do. I always say the world needs more love. So how are you going to show up more loving to in the world today and this week? And first and foremost, because we're talking about self-love and boundaries, how are you going to show up more loving towards yourself?
I love it. Well, I am Deb Creer. I've been having such a fun discussion with April Roberts, the head vixen at Vixen Gathering. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.